Say hi. See, I'm so cute. I'm such a cute kitty. Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am Tori and I love to talk about books. So we're here today to talk about books. Let's get into it. So it's middle of September and we're getting closer to October. And so people are getting more in their fall vibes, their fall mood. Every year, people seem to make these fall reading recommendations for October and stuff like that, but they're often a lot of the times the same books over and over and over. And so what I tried to do was pick some books today to recommend for fall reading that come from a variety of genres, one, and two, most of which I would say are underhyped. There's some that I think get talked about on the internet, in internet spaces, but I don't feel like I really see a lot of YouTubers or bookstagram people talk about them nearly as much. And some of these I've probably never heard of anybody talk about. Let's get into what are my somewhat underhyped books that I think are perfect for fall reading. First up, we have The House Witch by Delamock. I think that's how you say it. They don't have like first last name, it's just Delamock. This is actually also on KU, so Kindle Unlimited. I think the whole series is, last I checked. I read the first one on KU, I think. And then I was like, I have to order the book. And then I ordered the rest of the series and it's so good. Anyway, let me tell you what it's about. So The House Witch, you're following Finn. No. Yeah, it is Finn. You're following Finn and he is a house witch. So his magic specifically helps him with things around the house. So cooking, cleaning, any task that is surrounding making a house a home, kind of an idea. And he gets hired by the king of this country and he kind of rubs everybody the wrong way, but he's also trying to hide the fact that he's a witch because he doesn't want to be taken advantage of. And I would say this is a cozy fantasy book, but there is a little more plot to it than some cozy fantasies. Some cozy fantasies I feel like are only, they're only really about character relationships. And while this has a lot of that, like I love the characters. The second book in this series made me cry. And you do get that, but there are some things going on in the kingdom and with some of the other characters. And so you do have a little bit more stakes than some of the other cozy fantasies that I've read. And I really love the characters and I love the world and I think it's funny and it's cute and it's heartwarming and it's just such a good cozy read for fall, but it has witches and magic and it doesn't feel like too silly, I guess. But it's also not overly serious at the same time. So this is like my number one pick. And I feel like this book is severely underhyped. I really love this book and I really love this series. And I wish more people talked about it or read this. And this is my number one recommendation. Next up is a classic. And this is probably one that is a little bit more hyped, but I feel like I can't make a fall reading recs without mentioning it. And that would be Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is just everything that you could want in a fall read. It's very moody, it's very vibey. There's a lot of mystery going on and everything's a little bit fuzzy and hazy and weird and it's kind of creepy, but it's not like scary creepy. It's just like, what the heck is going on creepy. And I've read this book many times in my life. And I just feel like every time I enjoy it. It doesn't ever feel stale as a book. And I think it's just such a fun one to read around this time of year. So have to recommend that. This is a little bit of an older one. And I feel like this did get some hype when it came out. It's called A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This was a book of the month pick probably like 3 or 4 years ago now. And it's so good. Oh, it says 2021. So yeah, about 4 years ago. But like you're following this guy and he is traveling through the woods and he kind of stumbles along this community that lives out in the woods and doesn't really have contact with the outside world. very similar to The Village by M. Night Shyamalan, where they're like have no contact with the outside world. And then it like skips, and then you're following this couple that lives in the community and just kind of some of the things that they're learning about. And I don't want to like say too much. I don't want to spoil anything, but like, it's just so interesting. Like I am partial to books where they have this like secret society in the woods type of thing, but I feel like the descriptions are really well done. You really feel like you're in that place, like with nature, and there's this dark, haunted vibe to a lot of it. Plus, it's kind of mysterious, so you want to know what the heck's going on and why all these things are happening and stuff like that. And I just feel like it's very atmospheric for fall time maybe it's because of the forest setting, but the descriptions add to that as well. And I really liked this book. I still think about this book years later, and I feel like we often talk about books for a little while and then the hype dies down and then you never hear anybody talk about them again. And this is one of those ones that I would like to bring back up into the hype because I think it is worth the read. If you never did get around to it at the time when it came out, I would recommend giving it a go. Let's do some YA books that I think are really good for fall. The first one is definitely hyped, but it was new to me last fall and I really enjoyed reading it. I read the first two last fall, and then I've been wanting to finish the other two in the series, and I've kind of been putting it off because I really enjoyed reading it around this time of year. And so I'm actually going to read the other half of the series in the next month or so. But the book is The Raven Boys, and this is a 4-book series. You're following a girl, and she ends up falling in with this group of like private school boys. So she goes to the public school in their town. They go to the all boys private school, and she starts hanging out with them because her family is like they're psychics, witches kind of. And these boys are looking at the ley lines because they're trying to uncover old magic. Can't remember why they're looking for. I want to say it's King Arthur that they're looking for, but she has this prophecy, I guess, about her from her family where the first boy she falls in love with is going to die. And then she has a vision of one of the boys dying or being dead. And then she like meets him a couple of days later, and he's one of the ones in the group. And so she's trying to help them with the magic stuff, but then also she's trying to figure out why this one of the boys is probably gonna die. I still don't even know the answers, but it's such a good fall read. I really enjoyed reading this last fall, and if you haven't read this series, I think it lives up to the hype, especially if you enjoy YA fantasy series. The other two I don't have physical copies of. They're by the same author. One is called Don't Let the Forest In, and the other one is called Hazelthorn. So Don't Let the Forest In came out last year, and you're following this boy, and he's at an all-boys school, and he keeps having these dreams about like the woods attacking, and there's all this other stuff that goes on, but I don't want to spoil anything. And then Hazelthorn is actually her new book, and it's coming out on October 21st. So kind of still within our fall book time. But I actually got the arc of this book and was able to read it. And I literally finished it today because it was so good. It was so good. And what I like about CJ Drews is that she writes such good nature horror. I feel like Mexican Gothic got really popular for its like use of mushrooms in the horror and the creepy vibe. And CJ Drews does that, but with like everything. Plants are always a huge part of the horror and the creepiness. And both books follow like a queer romance, but it's not really the focal point. It's there. And I really liked Don't Let the Forest In. I really liked the descriptions. It really like drew me in. But Hazelthorn is better. And it's so good. They're both such good, creepy fall reads without being like scary. So Hazelthorn, you're following Evander. Evander's parents and this other boy's parents died in a car accident. And the other boy's grandfather adopts Evander. And he's like, we were best friends growing up, me and the other boy. And then the other boy tries to kill him one day. And he is now very sick. He's 17. This happened when he was like 10 or something. He is always feeling sick. He loses huge chunks of time that he can't remember. And because he is kind of sick and a danger to himself, they keep him locked in this room. So he's locked in his room with his bathroom, and that's it. And he's never allowed to leave. And one night, somebody unlocks the door. And he starts roaming about the house, and he finds that the other boy is home from boarding school when he shouldn't be. And then the grandfather dies. And so now they're trying to figure out like what happened. All this other stuff's happening. The garden keeps like trying to come in the house, and it's like seems alive and it's attacking people. It was so good. And the descriptions are just creepy, but in the best way. I really liked this book. And I just think that I feel like CJ Drews has been getting some hype, especially around Don't Let the Forest In. But if you liked that one, or you like plant horror, creepy vibes, or if you liked Mexican Gothic. I mean, I did not like Mexican Gothic, but not because of the mushroom stuff, because of other things that have nothing to do with that. But Hazelthorn is definitely for you. Highly recommend it. Moving on to one of my favorite kind of creepy topics is house horror. So this one is probably more well known. It's called House of Leaves by Mark Danielowski. I think it's wrong with his name. This is one of the weirdest books you will probably ever read. And some people read it and hate it. Some people think it's just not for them. And that's fine. I think it takes a certain type of vibe. I like it for a couple of reasons. One, I like house horror where something's wrong with the house, or the house is trying to kill you, or I don't know. It circulates around the house, right? Something else that's fun with this is just the way it's written. So there's like 3 stories kind of going on at the same time. There's parts where like the font is like the text is all over the place. There are times when you have to read upside down. Let me see if I can find one of those pages. Like, I've never read anything like this book before, and I don't know that I will ever read anything like it again. Okay, so like this one is all sideways, so you have to like turn the book to read it, and it's just so good. This guy moves to a house, and he realizes that the dimensions of the inside of the house don't match the dimensions on the outside of the house, and then randomly this door appears. And when they go through it, there's like a labyrinth kind of in there. And so you're following the documentary of that. And then this other guy is like researching it and trying to find the house. And it's just weird. And it's really good. This is one of the only books that I have actually screamed and thrown across the room before. Because I was home alone reading it at night, and the postman like dropped off a package and knocked on the door to let me know that they had dropped a package off. And I was so like invested in what was going on in this creepy house book. And I literally, when that knock happened, I screamed and I threw the book across the room. Really good. It is a little longer, which I think is where some of the commitment is difficult for people. It might just not be for them. But I like to read a longer book in the fall, winter, because I feel like I'm stuck indoors more, and something about getting lost in that for a long time is really nice to me. And I just feel like this is the best book for this. And in fact, I think I might have talked myself into rereading it soon. And on the tails of that, I have my most recent house horror obsession, which is We Used to Live Here. This just came out this year, and I feel like it is getting some buzz and some hype. It's weird. So it's a lot shorter, right? So if you're kind of interested in trying something like this out, but you're not sure House of Leaves is for you because it feels too much, like too intimidating, start here. I feel like this is good. This is also a little bit different in that like there's these little moments in between some of the chapters where there's like Morse code, and you're trying to like decode that and see how it ties into the story. There are some like maps and things, but basically this couple they buy and flip houses, and they buy this house that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, shocker. And one of them goes to town, which is like 20 minutes away, to get something from the store. And the other one, she's home alone. And so this family shows up on their doorstep and knocks on the door and says, hey, we used to live here. We were driving through on our way to this other place. Like, we're moving across the country. We thought we'd stop by so I could show my kids the house I grew up in. And she has an impossible time setting boundaries, so she lets them. And then all sorts of stuff starts happening, and there is literally no way to explain this. This is one of those ones that I want more people to read so that we can all talk about what the heck happened. Because it's a good time. It's a fun ride, and I think it's a good introduction to like the kind of like house horror genre. I mean, I know it's like a subgenre, I guess, but I really liked this book. This is gonna definitely be in like my top 5 this year because I just, so good. Highly recommend. Last fantasy book that I'm going to talk about is Blood Over Brighthaven, because I see a lot of buzz around dark academia books, but I feel like so much of dark academia is rooted in racism, because historically these Ivy League schools or type school settings, right, tend to revolve around wealthy people. And historically that was because you were white, because you took advantage of minorities and etc. So I feel like that has bled into the genre as a whole, right? And I know there's a lot of discussion out there around specifically A Secret History, because there is a lot of racist things in there. And to some extent it's like, well, it's the characters, but societally, like, we have created this world where that is the case, where those characters would be that way. And it doesn't mean you want to read that, right? And it doesn't necessarily make it okay. So I like the idea of dark academia, but I have a harder time loving all of the picks because of that very reason. This one, it's a little sci-fi fantasy, right? It's got a little bit of both. And it is a little dark academia because you're following this woman, and she is the first woman to be, like, to pass the test to become, like, officially, like a wizard and actually work in, Brighthaven on all of their projects involving magic. And there's different branches of it and things like that. So, but the commentary within this on race and societal structures and sexism and misogyny and the patriarchy, and how you can be oppressed, but your oppression might not be the same as others' oppression, and that doesn't mean that you understand the same way, or it doesn't mean that just because you're oppressed, you're not also causing oppression for others. But it handles a lot of these really heavy topics in what I feel like is a little bit of a nuanced way. I don't feel like it's overly heavy-handed, but you also very clearly get the message. I will also say that the first chapter is the most devastating thing you will ever read. And what a start to a book because of that. And so I've heard this a little bit more in the past year since I've read it, but I still think that it deserves more hype than it's gotten. And it's just, it's such a good book. So yeah, Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wong. And this was at some point on KU. I don't know if it still is. So if that's an easy way for you to get books, I think that might still be on there. I couldn't not recommend Gideon the Ninth. Gideon the Ninth is probably one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time. It is so good. It's so funny. It's mysterious. You're following a necromancer and her kind of guard, Gideon, and they have to travel to like this other planet where pairs like them are coming from other planets to all converge here because they're trying to enter this competition. And when they get there, it's like this creepy mansion that's kind of decrepit, but has all these like hidden secrets from the ancients that they're trying to crack. And then people start dying and they don't know who did it. And so you're getting like murder mystery, but necromancers in space, and there's a little bit of like a lesbian romance, and then it's so good. The magic system's good. Everything about it is weird, and you never know where it's going. And the whole series so far is really good. I feel like by the time you get to the end of the book, you're like, what the heck? How did you get me on so many levels in so many ways so good? And then you get to the next book and you're like, I'm gonna get answers. And she does it again where you're just like, I don't know what's going on half the time, but it's like, it's such a good ride at the same time trying to figure it out and piece it all together. I truly have never read an author write the way that Tamsin Muir does. And I love this series. I just think it's so good. And I do think it has good hype. I know a lot of people do read this and talk about it. And I know there are people who read it and hate it. I know not everything's for everybody, but I think if you kind of liked locked room mysteries with like magic in space, that type of thing, I think you would really enjoy this. Last, I have two classic sci-fi-ish, both by Shirley Jackson. So the first is The Haunting of Hill House, and the other one is We Have Always Lived in the Castle. They're both by Shirley Jackson. They're both weird and creepy for different reasons. The Haunting of Hill House is a very slow burn. Like, these people go to a haunted house to try to document if it's actually haunted, and you're following this one woman, and you're just kind of slowly seeing this descent into madness, hauntings. You kind of have to decide what's going on, and it is very gripping and very strange in a lot of ways. And then out of the two, I honestly think We Have Always Lived in the Castle is my favorite because it is even more bizarre than The Haunting of The Haunting of Hill House. I always want to say House Hill, which doesn't make any sense. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. You're following this girl. They live in this like big estate right outside of town. Everybody in the town hates her and her sister. Her and her sister live there alone with, like, I think their uncle who's in a wheelchair and is dying or something. And their parents were poisoned. And everybody says one of the daughters did it. And it is just weird and unsettling. And I think if you kind of like a weird, unsettling vibe in the fall for reading, these are both really good for that kind of creepy situation. That's all. Those are all the books that I would recommend for fall time reading in the next month or so, across a couple of different genres and a couple of different types of fall books. So I hope that something sounded interesting to you and that you do pick it up, because these are all books I really, really enjoyed. All of them I think were 5 stars, and I think they're a good time, and they're very much match the vibe of this type of year. So yeah, if you've read any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. If you are gonna pick up one of these, I would also love to hear about that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you next time.